Good day everyone, I am Gemma Atendido, the first presenter of Group 1. So today I am going to discuss the Chinese literature. Chinese literary works include fiction, philosophical and religious works, poetry, and scientific writings. The dynamic eras frame the history of Chinese literature and are examined one by one. The grammar of the written classical language is different than the spoken languages of the past 2,000 years. The history of Chinese literature extends thousands of years, from the earliest recorded dynastic court archives to the mature vernacular fiction novels that arose during the Ming dynasty to entertain the masses of literate Chinese. So there are four classes of literature: the classical literature, modern literature, contemporary literature, and the present age literature. So first is the Chinese classical literature. It refers to the earliest period and covers works from 3,000 years ago to the late Qing dynasty and is virtually unbroken strands enduring dynastic changes. So the Water Margin, Journey to the West, Romance of the Three Kingdoms, and Dream of the Red Chamber. These four novels form the core of Chinese classical literature and still inform modern culture. The second one is the Chinese modern literature. It refers to the period from the Opium War in 1840 to the May 4th movement in 1919. Being in accord with the great transformation of modern Chinese literature, modern Chinese literary theory is formed against the backdrop of changing modern cultural values in modern China. The multi-roles it has played in modern Chinese society include cultural intervention, social act, and construction of an aesthetic experience and literary appreciation. It does through a dynamic dialogue between authoritative Western literary theory and traditional Chinese literary theory, manifest distinct features of modernity, vernacular written language, academic institutionalization, cultural explicitness, revolutionary radicalness, westernization of inner system, and implicit Chinese traditions. It also developed to a new stage where the localization of Western literary theory in China needs to be constructed and addressed. So the third one is the contemporary literature. It spanned period from 1919 to the foundation of modern in 1949 and took on a new vigor. Contemporary literature is a vast group of written works produced from a specific time in history through the current age. This literary era defines a time period, but it also describes a particular style and quality of writing. Then the last one is the present age literature. It evolved since the establishments of the People's Republic in 1949. During this time, modern China's political arena, thriving economy and culture provide more freedom and an open atmosphere in which present-day literature takes on a greater brilliance. Poems, essays, fiction and drama in a broad spectrum of themes and in any forms are quite popular. Newspapers, magazines, radio, and the internet all give writers of literature much scope for their exertions. Consequently, for their encouragement, there are literary prizes such as the Lu Sun Prize, Mao Dun Prize, Spring Prize, Feng Mu Prize, and Lao She Prize are more besides.
Literary genre can be considered as the cultural reflection of a certain historical stage. The evolution of a literary genre is roughly based on the rise and fall of dynasty. China's pre-Qin prose, Tang poetry, song, poems, and so on, all have their unique characteristics. Tang Dynasty, development of Chinese writing. The first dynasty for which there is historical record and archaeological evidence is the Tang dynasty. Hieroglyphics writing on bronzeware and oracle bones, it evolves into a ideographic and partly phonetic Chinese characters. Zhou dynasty. Basic philosophical and religious literature. The great literary works of a philosophy and religion that became the basis for Chinese religion and social belief stem from what is called the Spring and Autumn period and the Warring States period. Taoism, Confucian's literature, and other prominent religion and philosophical schools are all emerged during these two periods. The main contribution of this period to Chinese literature were the prose work of the Confucian, classic, and the Taoist writings, and preserved poems and songs. And the Qing dynasty, literary disaster and legalism. In this period, prose was prevailing. Writing was characterized by prose expression of true feelings and flexibility of formats and patterns. It facilitated the need to record the different ideas and thoughts of different schools. Therefore, it is no surprise that essays and writings tingled with strong political colors, such as the Analect of Confucius, Musai, and Mencius are all presented in this style. Muism is big philosophical and religious school founded by Musai. Lisi is a Qing emperor who introduced a writing system and developed into modern Chinese writing. And legalism is philosophical school. It is that philosophical belief that human beings are more inclined to do wrong than right because they are motivated entirely by self-interest and require strict law to control their impulses. Han Dynasty, scientific and historical texts, prose was further developed. Essay combining prose writing and rhymes became more popular, and new format fu emerged and developed into a mainstream format of literature. Era's major contribution were historical texts and scientific works. Saimei Khan wrote historical records. History records means major history concerning the overall history of China from Tang Dynasty to Han Dynasty. Cai Lun is the first person in the world to create writing paper. Tang Dynasty, early woodblock printing and poetry. The Tang Dynasty is the one of the most prosperous as far as ancient Chinese culture is concerned. Poetry originated in the pre-Qin period and became popular in the Tang Dynasty. Known for its conciseness, magnificent words and phrasing, poetry has certain rhythms and rhymes that can better express one's thoughts and emotions. To name just a few, famous poets of Tang Dynasty are Li Bai. Li Bai, poet immortal, one of the greatest romantic poets. Du Fu, poet saint, one of the greatest realist poets. Bai Jovi, poet magician, and lastly is Li He, poet wizard.
So to continue the report, Song Dynasty 960 to 1279, early woodblock printing in travel literature, poetry, scientific texts, and the Neo-Confucian classics. In the Song Dynasty, poetry evolved into a genre called Se, which was essentially song poems composed for banquets and such events. There were strict rules on the number of sentences and words and on the intonation of each word. As it once said, sound is one of the basic forms to convey aesthetic information. Songsu is considered as a kind of music literature whose musicality is of a high aesthetic value. According to different writing styles, Songsu is composed of two schools, bold and unconstrained, and graceful and restrained. The former was led by representatives such as Su Shi and Qin Shiji, while the latter includes poets such as Liu Yong and Li Xingshong. 5 classics and 4 books. It was written in the classical language. The 5 classics include the Book of Changes, the Classic of Poetry, and the Record of Rites, the Classic of History, and the Spring of Autumn Annals. The 4 books include the Analects of Confucius, Mencius, the Doctrine of the Mean, and the Great Learning. Shenku and Susong both worked in scientific treatises. Shenku discovered the concept of the north and magnetic declination, while Susong, famous for his hydraulic-powered astronomical clock tower. Yuan dynasty, 1279 to 1368. Drama and great fictional novels. The Yuan dynasty is known for its drama literature. The Yunchu, literally song, including poetic dramas and various songs. The dramas and plays of the Yuan dynasty are rich in subjects and characters and are flexible and diverse in creation as well. The most popular ones include the Autumn in a Han Palace by Ma Yuan, also referred to as the apparition of a lonely goose, and a dark dream in the autumnal Han Palace, which describes the tragic love story between the Emperor Yuan of Han and his concubine Wang Zhaojun. Next is the Romance of the Western Chamber by Wang Shifu, also translated as the Story of the Western Wing. It tells a story that of a gifted scholar and a beautiful lady falling in love at the first sight, but have to overcome lots of obstacles to finally get married. One of the best romantic dramas ever written in China. Han Qing, one of the best playwrights of all time, created Midsummer Snow, one of the most popular drama pieces. This story was about a young woman who was wrongly convicted of crimes she didn't do so because of a corrupt official, and was sentenced to death, and only got her justice after her death. The last 2 dynasties are Ming dynasty and the Qing dynasty, where the 4 greatest China's classical novels were written. Ming dynasty, 1368 to 1644. Novels. In the Ming and Qing dynasty, with the development of the economy, there were increasing of cultural needs and demands. Hence, novels as a literary genre prevailed. Novel during at that time focuses on the description of characters and reflects social life through a complete storyline and environmental description. The 4 great classical novels of ancient China were all created in this period. First one, which is the A Journey to the West by Wu Xing'an, based on the historical journey of a Buddhist to India. The second one is the Romance of the 3 Kingdoms by Lu Guangzhong, an epic tale of war and heroes, loyalty, betrayal, and cunning plans, of morality versus cruel political reality, and of what men are capable of doing in pursuit of power. Third one is the Water Margin by Shi Nai'an, tells of a group of outlaws gathered at Mount Liang to rebel against the corrupt government. So the last dynasty, which is the Qing dynasty, 1644 to 1911, novels and pre-modern literature. Mencius established the last dynasty. In the 19th century, foreign literature in the West became better known. So in this dynasty, the last China's classical novel was created, which is The Dream of the Red Chamber, or The Story of the Stone by Xiao Shushan, last of the China's 4 great classic novels. In the near end of the era, modernist literature were developed. That would be all. Thank you.